there. Let's see here. Make sure everything's all set up. Sorry, everybody. Working on setting up my live stream right now. Thing here. All right, guys. Welcome to the stream. I don't know why I did a clap sync. That's usually what I do for my videos, and I just kind of got in the habit of that. So apologize for that from the live stream. But guys, welcome to The Charge. I'm giving you yet another NBA live stream. And guys, today is a very exciting time as the Boston Celtics answered the call and won against the Miami Heat. This was probably the most impressive game that we've seen from the Boston Celtics in a very long time. This was the Boston Celtics that we recognize from a very long time ago. This is the Boston Celtics that reminds me of that 08 team that won the NBA championship. And I don't know if you guys can see, it's Kevin Garnett's number. This was a very impressive game, not only due to the fact that they won 121 to 108, but just due to the fact that they got gut punched in the first half of the game, right? You know, the first quarter was their lowest scoring quarter. It was their worst field goal percentage quarter. It was just an absolute terrible game from them. And I'm glad that the Celtics were able to answer the call, especially when it came to Jason Tatum and, of course, Daniel Theis. Theis was definitely, you know, as much as I like to rag on him, as much as I talked about last stream, I challenged him to do a lot better, and he answered the call. And that's an amazing thing to see, because we know that Daniel Theis isn't necessarily, you know, a starting center type of caliber player, but he definitely played a lot better today as he finally was able to score in the paint. And that's something that the Celtics needed from Theis, especially if they're going to run that zone defense from the Miami Heat. Today they didn't really run it as much. They ran it like more in the second half, like when we made that 20-6 run in the third quarter. But it was still an amazing thing to see, and it's what kind of willed the Celtics back into the game. You know, you had Jaylen Brown, who had another amazing game. I mean, if we look at the stats here, 4-10 from three-point land, 28 points from Jaylen Brown, 31 from Jason Tatum, and of course, you know, Marcus Smart picked his moments, had 12 points, but still was very effective with a plus 11. With 8 rebounds and 8 assists. So I'm very happy to see that Theis as well, but also that Marcus Smart was able to answer the call. Kemba Walker finally played very well. He was very aggressive and attacked really with a purpose, and that's something that we haven't seen from him, because we know that before it was most of those piston dribbles, and I'm glad that he was able to answer the call. So, you know, from a game plan perspective, the Celtics in the second half got challenged, because the rumor and the things that were talked about was that Brad Stevens just said, you know what, I'm gonna let the players kind of handle their halftime talk. I'm not going to talk anymore, because obviously it's not getting through to the players, and I want them to take accountability for what's going on in the game. So, you know what? Kudos to Brad Stevens for letting them do that, because they needed it, man. Like, in the first half, it was an absolute shocker of a game. I mean, the fact that the Miami Heat shot 19% from three-point land kind of just goes to show you that we should have won this game easily. And due to the turnover battle, we did. You know, 11 turnovers, and we win the game. Zero, I believe only 2 turnovers for Tatum. Everybody was kind of on small turnovers except for Jaylen Brown. Not really much from the bench, but the bench did give you some good minutes. Gordon Hayward gave you some quality minutes again. 4 of 9 from shooting, 10 points. And you just got an all-around great effort from everybody. And I'm just glad that the Boston Celtics were able to answer the call, because Brad Stevens challenged this team. Like, look, you guys are probably the best team that we've seen so far. You know, we recognize what Celtics basketball is, and right now we're just not playing Celtics basketball. And I'm glad that they were able to answer the call, because to be honest, it was a little frightening to see that the Celtics in the first quarter were just absolutely kind of laying down to the Miami Heat. I mean, the Miami Heat, Duncan Robinson, I believe, had 17 points in the first half, if I'm not mistaken, and only had 3 points in the second half. So that's a huge adjustment Jay Crowder, 0 of 6. He seems to be struggling a lot from three-point land. Jimmy Butler not going to be shooting threes. He kind of was in a little bit of an average game. Bam Adebayo also was kind of held to, only 11 field goal shots, 13 points. Dragic, I think, had one of his better games since the last couple of them. He only had, 23 points, but was 1 of 7 from three-point land. That's good numbers. I'll take that all day. Make him shoot inside, make it tough buckets on our players. I will take that each and every time. So obviously it was a great game, and again, not playing in the game. Not sure why. Erik Spoelstra, please get him in the game. He's definitely going to be a very good contributor. I know Solomon Hill gave you some quality minutes, but I think it's time to use Nunn. I know that Dragic is kind of your answer, but you've got to use him. And Tyler Hero kind of played okay today. Didn't really do much offensively, 6 of 12, 50%, 2 of 5 from three-point land. But other than that, didn't really get you much. Only 3 rebounds and 1 assist with 2 turnovers. If we kind of look at the stat line here, I think the biggest factor for the Celtics winning was, of course, 31.6% and 19.4% from three-point land. But I think another big thing we need to talk about, of course, is the fact that the Boston Celtics also did not turn the ball over more than 20 times. I keep saying this, guys. If you can limit your turnovers, the Celtics can easily win. And now that they're actually limiting their turnovers, we're seeing the results of that. So I'm hoping that we can get more of that from the Boston Celtics, because that's the Boston Celtics that I know and love. That's the Boston Celtics that's going to win you games. And so I'm hoping that this is a wake-up call and saying, look, we can beat the Miami Heat. We can do a lot of things. And now they're going to hopefully look at getting Theis at least in the middle a little bit to be an effective shooter. I mean, he's not going to make every single one of them. I'm not expecting him to get what he had, like 12 points or something like that. Maybe a little bit more, 15, I believe. No, he had 15 points. I'm expecting Theis to make those little floaters. I'm expecting him to make some points here and there. So I'm glad that he's finally stepping up to the call and actually taking a charge and taking advantage of the situation at hand. And again, sorry guys, this stream is late. Just had to take care of a couple things and also kind of set up the live stream. But nevertheless, the Boston Celtics proved to us once again that they were able to take charge what seems like in forever. Like I said, the last couple games just didn't feel like Boston Celtics basketball. It felt more like a team playing with like a chickens with their heads cut off, or they're playing pretty much like, they're playing tight, to put it lightly and to make it more PC. Like they just played so tight, especially in the first quarter. We saw the result of them playing tight. But I'm super excited for the Boston Celtics right now. This is exactly what I wanted from the Celtics from the beginning, right? They did their job. They got the results that they needed to. And if we look here, guys, like I said, Jay Crowder may have had 14 points, but you take away his 3-point shooting ability and just make him drive the paint, he's not going to hurt you. Neither is Jimmy Butler, because he's not going to shoot a lot of threes. He's going to shoot maybe a couple here and there. And then, of course, you had the bench Tyler Hero, 2 of 5, not bad. Duncan Robinson went 3 of 11. I think that's, first half he was killing us on attacking the paint, and, I'm fine with that. Because what I'm fine with is them taking jumpers and taking long twos and taking jump shots and attacking the layups and all here and there. Because to be honest with you, their 3-point percentage is what's kind of gotten them to where they're at so far. And I really think that they play really tight, as we saw going into the second half, what happens when you actually play like the Celtics do. I mean, Jason Tatum took off. He was attacking, actually did a really good job of actually getting fouled, doing some James Harden-like maneuvers to get into the paint. So I'm glad that we were able to do that, because that is the Boston Celtics that we need. We don't need the Celtics shooting lots of jumpers, lots of 3-point shots. We need them attacking the paint. And it starts with Tatum, and it starts with Jaylen Brown, who did a tremendous job tonight attacking the paint and, finishing off of some turnovers from the Miami Heat, which is amazing to see. We also won the rebound battle, 50-38. Brad Stevens talked about it in the last game. We just lost all the 50-50 balls. And now that the Celtics were able to get the 50-50 balls, I mean, look at that. 50 rebounds for the Boston Celtics. That's huge compared to 38 for the Miami Heat. It just kind of goes to show you that they were willing to attack the offensive rebounds. They were willing to attack the defensive rebounds, the long ones. And Jason Tatum played a huge part in that as well with 10 rebounds. Theis also stepped up as well with 13 boards. You know, you see it's more of a group effort nowadays, but the fact that, you know, you had Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown also get those rebounds, it's a sight to behold. And Kemba Walker played with a plus 21 plus minus ratio. Definitely a huge improvement over the last game. So, guys, I'm excited for the Boston Celtics. I think that we can't write them off just yet, as much as I did yesterday. I was saying, you know, they might not have a chance, but this is an exciting and welcoming sight to behold, is that the Boston Celtics finally stepped up in the huge and big moments. Something else that was kind of interesting to look at as well is that Kelly Olynyk played in the game. You know, he played earlier in the couple of the games, and now, you know, gave you some solid points here and there. But, you know, they haven't really used him. They've used everybody else a lot. So it's interesting to see. You know, they played Daniel Jones Jr. a little bit more the last couple games, and Kelly Olynyk not as much. But the fact that you were able to just limit, especially Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, especially Jimmy Butler, you know, 5 of 11, 0 of 2 from 3-point. That is exactly what the Celtics need to do in order to win games. So I'm happy to see that the Boston Celtics finally stepped up. They finally got to where they need to go. And, you know, it's going to be an interesting series. I think it's going to go 7 games. I think it's going to go the Boston Celtics way, but this is where you have to win 3 straight. So kudos on the Boston Celtics for doing their jobs, actually attacking the paint, actually doing their jobs. Especially Theis rebounding and shooting, especially when you're in the middle, when you're wide open. As long as you're a threat from inside, the other guy has to step up. The bottom guy, which is going to be Bam usually, is going to have to step up, and that's where you can either shoot it or you can have a guy cutting across from the bottom, and you might be able to get an easy pass. You know, Jaylen Brown cutting it to the basket and 1 foul, and that's how we win the game. So I'm glad to see that from the Boston Celtics, especially because, you know, Jason Tatum really stepped up today, and I'm very proud of that. There were some shots that were a little questionable. We could have had an easy pass to Theis, who had Duncan Robinson on it. It would have been an easy layup. Oh my goodness, we're gonna start the yawns again, guys. I'm sorry, but still an exciting thing to see, and I'm happy that Jason Tatum finally stepped up to the plate and actually made his free throws and actually went to the line and got the calls he needed to. But one thing that I will notice, Jason Tatum, is that you still, as much as I appreciate you, you still can't be asking for fouls every time. I think that there is times where you are fouled, and then there's other times where you're not, and you're just going to have to suck it up. Because I don't want to pick up a technical foul because you're complaining to the ref that you got fouled, okay? That's my only complaint about the Boston Celtics today, because otherwise they played an amazing game, and Brad Stevens finally dialed up something against the zone, which is very simple, and it's just going into the middle and allowing everybody else to kind of spread out and let Theis make his shots. Let's see here, guys. See if there's anything else we need to talk about here. This might be a shorter stream just because I know that a lot of you go to bed, you know, around this time for, because I mean, I'm on the West Coast, so obviously it's only 9. Usually try to go to bed by 10 or 11. But nevertheless, you know, this was a very good game for the Boston Celtics. It looked doom and gloom, but they stepped up. And the turnover battle, we won it. The rebound battle, which is huge, we won it. The 3-point percentage, we won it. And the field goal percentage, we lost, but I don't really count that for anything. I mean, the Miami Heat had to make some tough buckets on us, and kudos to them. Kudos to Tyler Hero. Kudos to Goran Dragic. They made those tough buckets, but I'm glad that we were able to get those tough buckets when we needed to. So that's really exciting to see. I'm hoping that we can get the same result, guys, for Sunday's game. I can't even remember the days now. So this is going to be an amazing thing, guys. I'm happy for the Boston Celtics finally stepping up to the plate. And, you know, the Boston Celtics really took advantage of the second half. You know, went on a 20-6 run, you know, got those turnovers, got 13 points off turnovers, and really did a good job. 17 fast break points compared to 6 for the Miami Heat. You know, 17 turns into a lot of points. So I'm glad that the Boston Celtics were able to get those and able to get us the dub. So, all right. 1 game down, 2 more to go. We got to look at this game by game because it's always a win or go home for the Boston Celtics. So it's going to be a very, very, very stressful game, these last 2 games. So we'll see if the Boston Celtics are up for it. They've kind of showed me today that if they play like they did today, where the starters don't have like 17 or 18 turnovers to their name as starters, and then the bench have a couple of them, then the Celtics can win these games easily, because right now the Miami Heat are struggling from the 3-point land. You know, you can't shoot the 3-point shot all the time. You're not the Golden State Warriors. The Golden State Warriors are an anomaly compared to everybody else, right? You know, Klay Thompson shoots a high percentage. Steph Curry shoots a high percentage. And it kind of trickles down to like Kevin Durant and many other players on the Golden State Warriors team. That was a special unit. That was a unit that can make a lot of threes. But I'm glad that the Boston Celtics were able to knock theirs down and also be able to defend the ball. And Marcus Smart played really well. But I think my player of the game has to go to Theis. Definitely stepped up in the category of scoring, but also in the fact of rebounding. That was my big one, because I think he played really awful in the first half, and I think that kind of motivated him to see that Enes Kanter was getting in there and getting some buckets. You know, Enes Kanter had 8 points. That's a really big 8 points. We know that's what he was brought to do. So it was really good to see that he stepped up to the plate in that aspect. But Theis definitely stepped up, got to the free throw line 3 or 4 times, or it was 3 for 4, got 13 rebounds, 1 assist, 3 blocks, which are huge, especially, you know, a couple of them on Tyler Hero to, you know, get that crap out of here. But an exciting game for the Boston Celtics. I'm very happy with the result. I'm happy with the way that the Celtics gathered and kind of held their composure, because this could have been a game, you know, you're down 10. You could be like, well, let me just chuck up threes and see what happens. But no, the Celtics stuck to the game plan, actually performed it to perfection, and that's how we were able to win the game. Now, the bigger question is what's going to be happening for next game? Are the Miami Heat going to go back to that zone? Because we saw them not really run the zone in the first half, and they kind of ran it more in the second half. So we'll see what happens with, you know, Tyler Hero also didn't really play that well, even though he had 14 points. He just didn't provide the impact that he did the last game, which was huge. And also, Jimmy Butler didn't come to play today, and neither did Bam Adebayo. You know, 8 rebounds for your center. You know, they kind of, you know, Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler basically had the similar stats in many different aspects, right? You know, 3 turnovers, 1 block, 1 steal, 8 assists, 8 rebounds. But I think one of them has to step up in that points category. I don't think you can rely on Duncan Robinson getting you 20 points every game. You can rely on him getting about like 13 to 15 points with, like, you know, at least, you know, close to 50% 3-point shooting. That's what you can get from Duncan Robinson. You're not going to get Duncan Robinson all the time, 7 to 15 attacking the paint. So we'll see what happens, guys. I mean, this was a very good game. This was a clinical game. This was a must win, and the Celtics responded. And it's the reason why I called it the video, you know, the Celtics step up to the call, because literally Brad Stevens called them out. They said, you know, to be frank and with all sincerity, we're finally playing like Celtics basketball. That was literally one of his quotes. Probably not word for word, but similar in that aspect. Like, look, I haven't seen you guys play like the Boston Celtics in a very long time. And the 3rd quarter to the 4th quarter, this is finally the time that I see you guys. Terrible English, by the way. This is finally the time where I see you guys stepping up to the plate, playing like the Boston Celtics during the regular season, pre-COVID, and you're finally playing like you want it. Because the last couple games, especially game 1 and game 2, they didn't want it with the way that they were attacking the paint. They thought that they could easily roll over the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat ain't no joke. They're not a bunch of slouchers. They're a really good basketball team, and Eric Spoelstra has a thing. Man, I'm pulling a Joe Biden here. Oh my God, I'm pulling a Joe Biden right now. The Boston Celtics stepped up to the call. And Eric Spoelstra is a great coach, so we can't take them for granted. We can't take them for anything other than they are a serious playoff contender, and we need to play better. And they finally stepped up to the call. I'm so happy about it. I'm so glad that they were able to. Now it's going to be about game 6 and game 7, because like I said, it's a win or go home situation for the Boston Celtics. This is no longer you have the lead, we can come back from it. This is game by game. You're going to have to take it each and every step. So we'll see what happens with the Miami Heat. We'll see what happens with the Boston Celtics. But man, I can tell you this is going to be an exciting playoff series, and I'm happy that the Boston Celtics won. And for the Miami Heat, you're going to have to get Jimmy Butler to step up a little bit. I don't know if he's still hurt. I don't know what's going on with him. His game has seemed a little less and less each and every time. And so we're going to see what happens in the next game. Can Jimmy Butler step up? Because I feel like your guy should be getting a lot more shots. I feel like Jimmy Butler should be getting at least 20 shots a game. Goran Dragic seems to be kind of the locomotive, the head of the snake, if you will, for the Miami Heat, and we were able to kind of stifle him a little bit. Had to make some tough buckets over Marcus Smart and his Cantor and many of our bigs. And you know what? Kudos to him. He made the buckets, had 23 points, but we did a really good job of making sure that they were tough and that they were clinical buckets. In our end, of course. And of course, for the Miami Heat, they're going to have to go back to the drawing board and see what's going to work and what isn't. I think Andre Iguodala is a little bit of a liability out there. I would limit his minutes, not just due to the fact that I don't think he can do that stuff anymore. I don't think he can provide you the Warriors Iguodala that you're looking for. So, you need to take it with a grain of salt, right? Because I think that Andre Iguodala is a great player, but right now I think he's just a little bit too old. I would put Nunn in there, man. I think Nunn can make a huge impact, and you're really stifling him right now. And I think that's really it, guys. I mean, there's not really much to talk about tonight. I don't think there's any real news and rumors out there. There might be something. See if we got anything on the news and rumor side. But yeah, I mean, I expect the let's see here. Oh, okay. Let's see this. Michael Malone. Okay, so Michael Malone might get fined for what he said here about the Michael Malone will go through the proper channels over foul call. So he's probably going to go to the league. You know what? I think it's a known. I think it's like I don't know what you call it. It's like it's out there, but no one really addresses it. It's like taboo for some reason. We know that the superstars are going to get the calls. I mean, we've seen James Harden get it. We've seen LeBron James get it. We've seen Giannis get it. I mean, these superstars are getting some big calls compared to the smaller guys, compared to the guys that are actually getting fouled. I thought there was a couple times where LeBron James got fouled, or where LeBron James fouled a player like Jamal Murray on that block. And there isn't a call, but then at the other end, it's like another foul. And it's the same thing for the Boston Celtics. There was times where I felt like Goran Dragic, there was one on Goran Dragic, which I was just like, come on, man. It was the one where Goran Dragic shot a three. Theis, went up to block the shot, realized that he didn't shoot the shot, kind of already was down, planted, and kind of tried to put out his chest and kind of stay back because he didn't want to foul him. And then all of a sudden you see Goran Dragic kind of lean in and try and foul him. I hate those fouls so much. I know Dwayne Wade was the master of those, and he perfected that to a T, and that's how he was able to get to the free throw line. But nevertheless, I still hate those because I think that it's unfair in certain aspects to be like, all right, defender, you were in the right position. You have the right to be there, but the offensive player goes into your space, and that's a foul. I think we need to kind of revitalize the rule a little bit when it comes to it, because I feel like a lot of the times it's the offensive player creating the contact, and then the defensive player standing his ground is getting the foul called. So, Michael Malone has a case here, but I just think that it's going to go on deaf ears because the NBA is just not going to change that. I think they should look at that. But, this is coming from a high school coach, right? This isn't coming from like an NBA coach and kind of the NBA rules. It's way different from high school to NBA to college. So they're all different rule sets. But I would like to see some consistency from the NBA in terms of that. I think there's a couple of them as well with the dribbling, or with the double dribbles and the travels as well. I think the travels is kind of a big issue right now. There's times where I'm seeing them do a move and it's not a travel, and that's most of the time, but there's some where I'm just like, come on, man, that's blatantly obvious that it's a travel. But you know what? It is what it is. That's kind of the saying for 2020, and I'm just going to say it again. I would like to see a little bit more consistency. So, Michael Malone, I think it's just going to fall on deaf ears, and let's kind of look at the comment section. I believe, let's see here. Before LeBron complained, there's another team that publicly petitioned the league about calls, Nuggets, Rockets. I mean, the thing is, like, I don't blame the refereeing for why the Nuggets lost that game, but I know where he's coming from, right? I think that it's kind of it's kind of on the refs as well, because the problem is that there's so few refs right now in the NBA, obviously because of the bubble, the pandemic. They want like their best refs there, so you're not getting the same, you're getting the same refs basically every time. So I would like to see them a little bit more consistent in their calls. I feel like there's some times where the refs will call it more tight, they'll call it more loose, and they need to decide. I think they need to set a precedent, and I don't want them to impact the game in many ways. But we know that refs do that all the time. You know, no fan is going to be happy. You know, if the Nuggets got 35 foul calls, the Lakers fans would call it out. And obviously now the Nuggets fans are calling out the Lakers free throw attempts. So, you know, it's kind of one of those things where, you know, it is what it is. You're going to have to deal with it. But I would like to see a little bit more consistency when it comes to from star players and NBA superstars to regular Joe Schmoes that are kind of the role players of the NBA. Because I feel like those guys do get fouled. They're just not getting it called often. And it's kind of like I said, it's out there in the open, but no one wants to address it because it changes the perspective of the game, right? Because I would love to see, you know, superstars actually get calls on there. Like I said, I think LeBron James got hacked people last night in a little bit of some instances, but also I can't blame him because, you know, Jason Tatum does the same thing, Jaylen Brown does the same thing, Theis does the same thing to all these other players on my team. So I got to keep it real, I got to keep it 100, and the fact that there is some foul calls that, you know, that superstars get and others don't. So it's one of those things where I want to see some more consistency from that, because the one thing I really hate is the lean in foul, because to be honest with you, I know Dwayne Wade perfected it, and I just talked about it recently. I hate that rule. I hate when that foul is called, because literally the offensive player is creating the contact in that aspect. You know, the defensive player has a right to be there. They're not supposed to move out of the way because the offensive player wants to lean in. Like, there's times where you're just like straight up and they lean into you, and obviously, you know, there's going to be some contact, so obviously there's going to be a contact. So it's like, why are you calling it then? The defensive player has the right to be there just as much as the offensive player has a right to be there. So that's my only issue with the foul calling right now, is just consistency with that rule. And another little thing we got to talk about here, I guess, is Anthony Davis is going to be questionable for Game 5. I think Anthony Davis is going to play. If he doesn't play, then I think the Nuggets win easily. But let's see, man. Let's see what this comment says. Wow, the Lakers really need to go through the proper channels and let the referees know that the Nuggets are causing injuries without touching players. They should consider. But yeah, I really do believe, if we look at everything, guys, I think Anthony Davis will play. I don't see him stepping out of the game for any reason. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what the Lakers can do. I'm hoping that they are able to. If Anthony Davis is hurt, give him the rest, because they're definitely going to need him for the NBA Finals. I have a feeling that it's going to be the Lakers in the NBA Finals, but, you know, never say never with a 3-1 lead, especially with the Nuggets when they were able to come back from all of them. But it is what it is. I'm excited to keep watching these games and keep looking at it, man. Like, especially this game on Sunday. I'm really nervous about it. I'm hoping that the Celtics can come back with the same energy that they had tonight. And I think that's really going to be it, guys, for tonight. You know, I would normally go an hour, but obviously I ran a little bit late after the game. Obviously the storylines, there's not really much to talk about when it comes to storylines. Keon Dooling going to be hired by the Jazz, which is a cool thing to see. We have Daniel House apologizing for his to the Rockets before exiting the bubble. I think he does need to apologize. That kind of stuff can't happen, man. You know, when it comes, like, it almost kind of reminds me of like the high school trips, right? You know, you have stuff go on. You want your players to be on their best behavior, and sometimes they just don't. And unfortunately, that's part of the game. That's part of life. And it's kind of one of those teachable lesson moments. But I'm hoping that House isn't in too much trouble. But that could really be the difference between costing you a contract, man. You really got to think about it in that aspect, right? Because if you think about it, House, if you are on a 1-year contract, you have 1 year left on your deal, is this really the smartest thing to do? Is to bring someone over into your dorm room or hotel, and yeah, you'll have fun for the night, but the problem is that when you have a contract situation, when you have something come up, the Houston Rockets are going to be like, well, how can we trust you to do the right thing if you won't do the right thing and you bring someone over, right? It's kind of like we want to give you trust and we want to give you the money, but if you're not going to behave, if you're not going to, follow the rules, especially when we're in a pandemic, right? This isn't just like, a team rule where like we're in a regular season, we're kind of just, without, pre-COVID, you can just be doing this stuff. Like, that's just not the case. You have to take ownership for your action. It's like the rookie for the Seattle Seahawks. He had to deal with that as well. He thought he could dress his girlfriend or lady friend. He thought he could dress her up as a football player and get away with it. That's just not the case. I've never seen a 5'4" football player before in my life, but maybe that could change. You never know. But nevertheless, you have to be smarter than that. And I'm hoping that Daniel House can understand that. And as he moves to, if he stays on the Rockets, if he moves to his next team, I'm hoping that he's able to learn that lesson, because that's a tough one to swallow, right? You cost your team the game with that stuff. And that's kind of something that I wish that they would do a better job. And it looks like the Mirotic is signing an extension with Barcelona, so he's not going to be in the NBA anymore. And I really think that's it, guys. I mean, if we kind of, let's see if there's any news from ESPN. Howard takes a page from Kobe. We're not finished yet. That's obviously what we need to see. Looks like Klay Thompson's back at full health. I'm happy to see that. I'm really happy to see that, actually, because I think Thompson's a great player. I think he should have went to a different team, but it is what it is. I'm glad that Thompson got his money, and I'm glad that he's able to play, because he's a very good player, and I can't disrespect him like that. Let's see here. We talked about Bam Adebayo yesterday being hurt, so that might be the reason why he was not effective as much. And I think that's going to be it, guys. I mean, other than that, not really much stories to talk about. Obviously, the big one being that the Boston Celtics survive. They win game 5. They answered the call that Brad Stevens gave them. They said, I need you to be better. I need you to actually be the Boston Celtics that we know and love. I want you to play like the 2008 Celtics. I want you to play like the Boston Celtics that got to the Eastern Conference Final. We saw what a tough battle it was against Toronto. Obviously, they're tired from that series, but so are the Miami Heat. There's no excuses to be made anymore. You have to step up to the plate when the coach calls your number. You answer the call, you answer the bell, you answer the challenge, because right now the Boston Celtics have answered the challenge, and now it's going to be up to them again to answer it 2 more times to get to the NBA Finals. It's all about how bad you want it, man. And if the Boston Celtics wanted that bad, they'll find ways to win. They'll find ways to get those rebounds. They'll find ways to get those loose balls. And they'll also find ways to play defense, because in that first quarter, it was Olay defense. You just let Goran Dragic, you let Duncan Robinson be like, Olay, go ahead and score your buckets. So, Boston Celtics, again, being challenged, being questioned their toughness, questioned if they want this game or not, and they answered with tremendous and the utmost biggest kind of blowout game that they could have, especially in the 3rd and 4th quarter, man. That's very impressive. It's really cool to see, and I'm hoping that we can get the same results for next game. But anyway, guys, this has been your boy Bernie here on The Charge, giving the latest NBA news and rumors and also basketball opinions here on the live stream. Of course, we are talking about the Boston Celtics after game 5, talking about how they got a huge win over the Miami Heat, 121-108. Boston Celtics shooting tremendously, less turnovers, actually attacking the middle in the zone, doing their job, and they finally answered the call that Brad Stevens was like, you know what? I'm going to let you guys handle this. You guys take care of it. But anyway, guys, this has been your boy Bernie, and I'll catch you on the next stream. Peace, guys and gals.